Hey guys, Break here, and today we're going to be talking about the value of gold across different servers. In particular, going to be examining whether or not gold is worth more on a high population server compared to a low population server, and whether or not there should be some sort of currency exchange, comparing currencies on different servers and valuing them differently. Obviously, this is all just personal opinion, and there's no right or wrong answer. There's no way to officially value currency. The value is really what you give it. However, in my opinion, having a lot of gold on a high population server is going to be a lot more valuable than having a lot of gold on a low population server, depending on what you're interested in. Let me give you a quick example to show you what I mean. So, say you have 100 gold on a high pop server or a reasonably high pop server. My server is in the top 15 highest pop servers in the EU. It's not the highest, but it's not a low pop, it's a medium to high pop. And if it's in like the number 11 spot, we're going to call it a high pop. So I have 100 gold on my high pop server, and I can buy at least 6 fell slates. Now here I am on a lower pop server. Again, it's not the lowest pop, but it's a lot lower than my main server. And here I could only buy 4 fell slates. That's pretty obvious. On lower pop servers there's less people farming, so there's going to be less fell slate around and it's priced higher. That's something everyone kind of realizes. Here I am on another lower pop server, and I'm sure we will see the same thing. Whilst the difference isn't quite as big, again, fell slate is worth more on this server than on the higher pop server. So with our 100 gold we could buy less fell slate than we could on the main server. However, a difference in fell slate doesn't really matter. You can't easily transfer fell slate from one server to another, and it doesn't really make a difference in the grand scheme of things. However, when this value does make a difference is when selling battle pets. Now, battle pets are important and significant for this video for the whole reason that you can transfer them easily from one server to another and sell them. In fact, they are basically the only thing in the game which you can do this with. Battle pets therefore act as a sort of currency checker, or a way in which we can value different servers' economies, as it's the only thing you can move between economies. Whilst not quite the same thing, we can kind of compare this to the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement, where the dollar became the sort of world's reserve currency. Many countries then pegged their currency's value to the dollar. So, if I'm taking World of Warcraft terms, 1 Sylvanas sterling, I'm going to call my realm's currency the Sylvanas sterling, would be worth $10. If the dollar's value dropped, then the Sylvanas sterling would drop. Goes like that. In a slightly similar way, we could say that battle pets could kind of be like the global currency or the dollar. So if you can buy 1 spectral tiger cub for 500k on Sylvanas, then we could call that the spectral tiger value. If we then went to a lower pop server where the spectral tiger value was 1 million, or twice that of the official spectral tiger value we've set from Sylvanas, then the currency would be worth half as much, because you would need twice the amount of gold just to get the 1 spectral tiger. Whilst this is all hypothetical stuff, we can see it in WoW at the moment. I mean, just yesterday I sold the Sand Scarab, as you see down here, for 465k on this server. This Sand Scarab was bought a few weeks ago on a much higher pop server for around 200k. I think it was more like 150k. So we took 150k from a high pop server and turned it into 460k on a lower pop server, or we tripled the gold. Does this mean the server's currency of the high pop server is 3 times that of the low pop server? No, obviously there are a lot of anomalies and nothing's really exact, but by this kind of thing you can certainly tell, in general, things are going to be worth a lot less on higher pop, and your gold can buy a lot more, so that currency is potentially worth a lot more. For those of you who are involved in cross-server arbitrage with the battle pets, I know a lot of you are, I've done a lot of videos on it. You'll already know this. It's pretty obvious to anyone selling battle pets that the cheaper pets are on the higher pop servers, and your goal is to get as much gold on the high pop servers as possible, because that's going to get you the absolute best deals for the pets that you can then turn into gold on other servers. Anyone who sells battle pets knows the value of gold on these high pop servers is much higher than the value of gold on the lower pop servers. Another example is when you do a guild bank transfer. Now this is how a lot of the richest players in the game make their gold. What they do is they pay for a guild bank transfer on the Battle.net website. All they do is they buy up a load of materials on their Hypop server, such as Starlight Rose, such as Fell Slate, and loads of other stuff, mounts, etc, etc, etc. They buy it up, value of about 1 million gold. They then transfer to a lower pop server. They sell it all, and they probably get about 2 million gold. So they've doubled their gold just by moving from where it's cheaper to where it's more expensive. And in fact, if you watch my Gold Camp Challenge series, I did this a couple of times to great effect. Whilst all of this suggests that gold is worth a lot more on Hypop servers, that completely depends on what you're interested in the gold with. For example, if you're interested in buying some awesome mounts, awesome tabards from the black market auction house, then it's almost always better to have gold on the lower pop servers. Why? There's a lot less competition, and usually you can get these crazy awesome TCG mounts or these crazy unobtainable mounts or tabards that you can't get anywhere else, and you can get them for a lot cheaper on the lower pop servers because there's so much less competition. I've seen tweets of people buying sort of plagued proto drakes and even Swift Zulian tigers from the black market auction house on lower pop servers for like 4 million, which is just crazy to me. If it came up on a higher pop server, it would be gold capped 10 million almost instantly. So in that scenario, gold is worth more on the lower pop servers, so it completely depends. But in general, and when you're comparing it to the one thing that you can transfer between servers, the battle pets, it's obvious that the higher pop servers have the higher value. Coming on to the second half of this video, does this mean we should have some sort of exchange rate between servers? So each server's currency is given a specific name, such as the Sylvanas Sterling, and then you can kind of trade them off on a kind of sort of currency exchange, and you can set values so it actually makes sense. I definitely think this is a bad idea. It would get too complicated and it would be pretty weird, but it is interesting to think about. At the moment, things are quite unfair and unbalanced because of the WoW token that you can buy with real money and exchange for gold on any server, because you can exchange this for the same amount of gold, around 300k on the EU, on any server you like. So if you are going to be spending £20 to buy gold, like I know a lot of you do, or however much it is in other currencies, then I do suggest doing it on a high pop server, if you have the choice, that is, if you play on both high and low pop, because it's going to be better value for your money overall. Should it be that buying a WoW token on Kazakh, one of the highest pop EU servers, should get you only 200k, but then if you bought it on a lower pop server, you'd maybe get 400k for it, because you know, with 400k you'd probably be able to buy the similar sort of stuff that you would with 200k on Kazakh. For example, a Sand Scarab would probably cost you 400k on one of those servers and only 200k on Kazakh, so it would make sense that surely that should be the difference. Again, I don't think this should happen. I think it would make things rather confusing, and value of gold completely depends on what you're going to spend it on. If you want to buy materials and battle pets, then obviously you may want to be on the high pop server. In fact, with almost anything, it's better to have the gold on the higher pop server, but again, it depends where you're playing, what you want to do with it. Do you want to try and snag some deals from the black market auction house, etc.? There are obvious discrepancies though, and things that probably should be addressed. Again, pointing back to my Sand Scarab, I've got another one which I recently bought for, again, less than 200k, and I'm going to sell it on this server again for over 600k this time. Well, that's what it's worth. Probably won't sell for that. But say if I did sell it for 600k, that would be 2 WoW tokens or 2 months of game time I could buy just from selling the Sand Scarab, and I could only get half a month's game time with what I could do on the Hypop server. It's all very confusing, guys, but I do want to know your opinion. Do you think gold is worth more on higher pop servers because you can buy more with it? Do you prefer gold on lower pop servers because you can do cool things and get things that otherwise might be out of your price range with more competition? I would be very interested to know. Should we have a more official way to compare and contrast values of gold? I mean, for example, between the US and the EU, obviously token prices are different, and that has given us a way in which we can compare the value of gold on the EU and the US. And on the EU, gold is worth less because for the same amount of money, basically, you get 300k on the EU and only 200k on the US, so potentially it's better to have gold on the US than the EU. Again, that is backed up in-game. For example, TCG mounts are worth way more on the EU, and you can buy TCG mounts much cheaper on the US. So we do have this method of comparison between the regions, but we don't have a method of comparison between servers. Well, the only comparison is the battle pets, which you can transfer, or potentially looking at value of other items, but you can't transfer them, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, that is my opinion. Should we have a similar thing between servers as we do between the EU and the US? I think probably not. It would be confusing and a bit weird, but I do think it would be very interesting, and it would add a lot of complexity to gold making and server economies, which of course would be very interesting and cool for us gold makers. But yeah, do let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching, and until next time, see ya!